Honourable Phil Heatley.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to once again lay out for New Zealand and for interested colleagues the national government, national-led government's plan for a brighter New Zealand and what we are laying out for the next 3 years. Our four main priorities, of course, are responsibly managing the government's finances. We have no particular interest in borrowing more and more and more from overseas, such as other parties are peddling to the New Zealand public at the moment in order to fulfil their election promises. We want to build a more competitive and productive economy, and part of that, of course, is investment in very important infrastructure, whether it's electricity transmission and generation infrastructure, whether it's roading or rail, whether it's broadband or other forms of telecommunications, which is important for New Zealanders, particularly in the provinces, to communicate with the rest of the country and the world. All those areas of infrastructure investment are important to us. Thirdly, to deliver a better, more effective and more responsive public service so that New Zealanders can more readily engage with government and government departments and agencies right throughout the country. And lastly, of course, that all-important rebuilding of Christchurch. And those are our goals over the next 3 years, ones that we will be measured on, and fortunately ones where we have already made considerable progress on. In terms of building a more competitive and productive economy, I already outlined that the importance of infrastructure is so very, very high. And it doesn't matter whether we communicate by rail and road, physically travelling to places, or through transport links, delivering goods and services from one place to another, or whether we do it in the virtual, travelling through broadband or telecommunications. The point is, New Zealand being a long, narrow nation needs to ensure that our communications and transport links are world-class. I was stunned, for instance, when we had a region which historically has been isolated from the rest of New Zealand. I'm talking about Northland. I'm sure Southland, Mr Speaker, where you're from, has never experienced this, but Northland, in the far reaches of the north of New Zealand, has historically, 100 years ago, been isolated from the capital and other parts of the country. Stunned to see the leader of the opposition beating the drum for no more investment on that state highway network north of Auckland. Beating the drum, saying that State Highway 1 from Auckland to Whangarei should not be upgraded. In fact, in a condescending manner, calling it the holiday highway, that they would rather, the Labour Party, pull the $1 billion committed to that and spend it on everywhere else but Northland. Very disappointed for Northlanders. Very disappointed for Northland. Well, colleagues will find this will come as some surprise, because they actually, my colleagues on this side of the House, don't actually realise that the Labour Party leader at the moment ran for the seat of Whangarei. No, you didn't know that, did you? Well, many colleagues didn't know. He ran for the seat of Whangarei in 2002. As a proud Aucklander, came, because the Labour Party usually sends Aucklanders to Whangarei to stand, came to Whangarei and actually said that he, back in 2002, would stand up for Whangarei, would stand up for Northland, and wanted more attention to be given to Whangarei and Northland. That's what the Labour Party leader said in 2002. In this general election, we found that he wanted to cut ties with Northland, did not want to invest more in that highway, North State Highway 1 to Whangarei, and Whangarei residents were aghast at the change of fortunes, the turn, I guess, that the leader of the opposition has made in that time. So Labour Party members might want to continue to call the State Highway 1 north of Auckland to Whangarei and to Northland the holiday highway and mock it, but actually we'll accept that. We're delighted that Aucklanders want to come north. We're pleased actually that it is a tourist destination. and if Aucklanders want to travel north and pull out their credit cards and spend money in Northland's capital, Whangarei, then we're absolutely delighted to that. But we want to see that sort of investment in the north. We've seen decisions made on Waterview, of course the Kopu Bridge, other important investment or transport investment infrastructure right across New Zealand, and we celebrate it. And there is much, much, much more to come. Roads aren't the only area where we're investing significant finances for the benefit of economic growth. The electricity network also across New Zealand is looking at a massive upgrade. People would have read in the last 2 weeks where there's going to be a marginal increase in electricity prices due to the investment in Transpower's network or the national grid right across New Zealand. Now, I recall when the National Party were in opposition and the government of the day there were talking about upgrading the national grid because they were concerned at that time that should there be power blackouts, it would be unfortunate if that occurred because our Transpower's grid throughout New Zealand had somehow failed. And I do remember the Labour Party talking about that in the year 2000. And in 2001 they continued that discussion, and I believe, Maurice Williamson will correct me on this, but they discussed it in 2000, 2001. I think in 2002 the Labour Party did what it did best in the government at that time. I think they formed an officials committee. That's right, and they discussed that for 12 months, and then, wasn't it 2003-04 they decided to get expert advice? I think some members called for a select committee inquiry, so we had 5 years of Labour government discussion about whether we should or whether we shouldn't upgrade the transmission lines throughout the country. Probably issued a discussion document. Not sure if the Labour Party surveyed, but as was their habit, when they governed during that period, it didn't matter whether it was building a road, electricity generation, electricity transmission, it didn't matter whether it was broadband, rail, whatever investment it was, they simply did a number of things all in a row: an officials committee, discussion documents, select committees inquiries, expert advice, royal commissions, anything but make a decision. Anything but make a decision in case they isolated someone. And unfortunately, like is the case throughout the world, yes, constituents like to be heard and like to be loved and like to be agreed with. But in the end, if year on year you show no leadership, you show no decision-making prowess, then they will toss you out, and that's what's happened. And that's why we're saying quite clearly, nailing our colours to the wall, is that we're about responsibly managing the government's finances, building a competitive and productive economy. We will invest in roading, we will invest in electricity generation and transmission, we will invest in broadband, we will invest in all these infrastructural opportunities. We will do that and make those decisions, which of course leads me to the investment in housing. Under the previous government, members will know that the Labour Party were very proud of increasing the number of state houses in their stock. When we took over, we made a very distinct and clear decision that it was we were enthusiastic about having state houses that were fit for purpose, that were warm and dry and livable, as well as increasing their number. So we decided that our investment would be upgrading the state housing stock and increasing it, doing that together, and that has been a very wise decision indeed. The previous government, interestingly enough, looked at the issue of state houses being on quarter-acre and half-acre sections and being sort of 1940s, 1950s, old, cold and mouldy pieces of infrastructure indeed. They've discussed for many, many years about doing something about that, but never actually did it. The National Party has decided that no, we will subdivide large sections, we will demolish old, cold and mouldy state houses and build new, modern, insulated ones. We will make better use of those assets, and that's what we're doing. So while members on that side of the House, yes, might have increased the number of old mould and coal estate houses, this side of the House we've decided we need to invest in both the quality and not just the quantity of housing, and that's what we're doing. Mr Speaker, we're very proud of the goal that we've outlined, our four main priorities: responsibly managing the economy, building a more competitive and productive economy, delivering better public services and rebuilding Christchurch. That's what we'll be doing, that's what we'll be measured on, and we're very pleased that in fact that will be the bar that we've set for ourselves and for New Zealanders to judge us in 3 years' time.
And now to make his maiden speech to the House, Dr. David Clark.